The name Stonehenge is thought to come from the Old English or Saxon word Stanhengen, which means stone hanging, because it kind of resembles what gallows looked like in the Middle Ages. You had two uprights with a crossbeam.
For centuries, Stonehenge has existed as a giant question mark on the English landscape. A circle of immense stone pillars appears to have been constructed by ancient people and put to use for reasons that remain a mystery for many. Was it a heavenly calendar, a place for religious ceremonies, or perhaps something even stranger?
By constructing Stonehenge, these people were creating something which had never been created before. It's a bit like their own space program.
After many years of excavations, analyses, and thorough investigations of the site,
that's a nice long piece of fibula. I would think we're going to get at least 50 individuals in here.
it appears that the archaeologists have found information that changes all of the previous theories that people had about Stonehenge and its purpose.
It's about the nature of eternity, the meaning of life and death.
The findings show a more remarkable history than what has come from past accounts and theories. But if one tiny object can rewrite everything, we thought we knew about Stonehenge. What else has been hiding in plain sight? The new wall boulder and the secret of the Wanderer stones. If you ever need proof that archaeology can hinge on the tiniest, most easily overlooked details, you need only consider the Newall boulder.
How exactly the stone was transported so far is unclear. If it came over land, people would have had to bring it.
Stonehenge may feel like a monument carved by giants, but it was a small stone, barely football-sized, that cracked open one of its oldest scientific puzzles. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't beautiful. For almost a century, it wasn't even considered important. Yet, as many forgotten artifacts will do, it just waited patiently for science to catch up. And when it did, the results were explosive. The Newall boulder emerged about a century ago, at a moment when archaeologists were still figuring out how to systematically record what they found at Stonehenge. Picture early 20th century digs. Men in wool coats, notebooks, wooden crates, and a lot of educated guesswork. Among the trenches and scribbled diagrams lay this modest, lumpy stone. It didn't match the grand sarcens. It wasn't one of the dramatic blue stones in the inner circle. It didn't look special, just a rough, foliated chunk with a faint shimmer in the right light. So they catalogued it, boxed it, and forgot about it. For decades, it slept in museum storage, gathering dust and attracting zero attention. But looks can be deceiving. This stone carried a story baked into its minerals. The Newall boulder, small yet strangely complex, fibrous texture, faint banding, and microscopic clues unreadable until the right tools existed. When scientists finally examined it closely, they forced the re-examination of a question that had been hotly debated.
At the ancient Stonehenge monument, his performance at the World Heritage Site was a closely guarded secret.
Did Stonehenge's blue stones come from Wales by human transport, or were they carried there by glaciers? For years, the debate went both ways. Some pointed out scratch-like markings as evidence of glacial transport, while others stated the stones were deliberately shaped and placed, too intentional to be ice-transported. Yet, with no conclusive proof, the discussion simmered on. Enter Professor Richard Bevans and his Aberystwyth University team. They weren't chasing legends, they were chasing chemistry that can't be argued with. There, the approach was candid, but relentlessly exact. Treat each rock as a suspect, and run a forensic analysis on it. So, they used geochemical fingerprinting. If you've heard that rocks are all the same, this method proves otherwise.
And they hold cremation burials. So this site is still the largest cremation cemetery known in Britain.
Each stone bears trace chemical markers, small signatures hidden in minerals, revealing precisely where it came from. For the Newall boulder, two elements, thorium and zirconium, took center stage. These elements form predictable patterns tied to the stone's geological history. Think of them as the rock's DNA, unique, specific, and almost impossible to counterfeit. Bevans compared the boulder's chemical profile with rock outcrops across Wales, and one location matched perfectly. Craig Rosie Phelan, a rugged landscape in Pembrokeshire. The thorium levels matched, the zirconium levels matched, and the microscopic features matched. It wasn't merely similar, it was a geological exact match. And crucially, the stone showed no signs of glacial abrasion, no smoothing, no scraping, and no rounding from ice. This wasn't nature dropping a stone off after a glacier ride. This was deliberate. Craig Rosie Phelan is a dramatic Welsh landscape, sharp outcrops, dense woods, and cool streams cutting through ancient rock. To the untrained eye, it is just another hillside. To the archaeologist, a treasure trove of clues.
Archaeologists pinpointed the source of the stones to an area of 25 kilometers north of the site near.
Excavation showed clear evidence of Neolithic quarrying, hollows carved for stone extraction, wedge marks where ancient hands pried stones free, abandoned tools, and earthen platforms built for hauling huge stones downhill. It wasn't some random patch of rock. It was a full-on prehistoric workshop where people transformed raw stone into monumental works. Dating of the quarrying activity positions it at about 3000 BCE, which perfectly fits with the first Stonehenge construction. It wasn't just a case of the Newall boulder matching up either. Other fragments of the blue stone, a buried one for instance called Stone 32D, were revealed to be the same foliated rhyolite as the Newall boulder. Another clear fingerprint back to Wales. But the significance isn't only about rock-to-quarry matches, it's also about location. Craig Rosie Phelan stands in grounds teeming with meaning, ritual sites, ancient roots, and evidence of organized communities that most likely viewed the stone as not merely material, but as identity. The new evidence didn't just support the human transport theory, it pulverized the glacial one. If glaciers had carried the blue stones, you'd expect fragments scattered across Salisbury Plain, rocks worn smooth by ice, and a random, chaotic distribution. Instead, the stones show up at Stonehenge with purposeful placement, as if someone carefully gathered them. Believing that glaciers dropped the stones neatly where the Neolithic builders needed them is like assuming that furniture simply materializes randomly in your living room. Convenient, but not really plausible. Even the sarcens, the bigger stones, had to be moved and set by people. Relatively speaking, moving 3-ton blue stones from Wales wasn't going to be the hard part of the project. The Newall boulder creates a vivid picture of Neolithic Britain, of networks of hundreds of miles with shared spiritual or cultural vision, and feats of engineering well in advance of their time. It was not a happy accident, nor a casual gesture of nature's help. It was a deliberate, organized human act. If a small boulder can create such intentional movement, what does this say about the giants of Stonehenge? The towering sarcens shaping its iconic silhouette, the giants of the plain tracing the sarsen stones. If you've ever stood in awe of the behemoths that comprise Stonehenge, you know that in reality, these rocks are far from rocks. They are, in fact, ancient skyscrapers, silent, immovable, and impossibly heavy. The most important ones that form this characteristic shape of Stonehenge are sarsens, enormous slices of compacted sandstone, which, needing millions of years to convert into stone as hard as steel, are tough enough to emit sparks when striking steel. Some of these are over 20 tons, and some rise above 7 meters into the air. These are not just large rocks, but geological giants that usually remain in the exact spot where nature intended. Yet, to these giants, the builders of Stonehenge said, "Yes, we can work with that." This choice of using sarsen stone to build Stonehenge is one of the most telling signs of what Stonehenge means. This choice of using the largest and most robust available material reflects a powerful statement about strength, endurance, and unity. The puzzle of how such a monument as sarsen arose in a mysterious way was solved due to a stone that never should have been, taking the form of a broomstick-sized core illicitly removed from a stone pillar in a restoration project in 1958. The person who pocketed it, Robert Phillips, kept it in his office, then in his home, for 60 years. Only when he was 90 did he finally decide it was about time to return it. This innocent-looking tube was the key that cracked the case. With the core back in their possession, scientists were finally able to conduct experiments that would never have been allowed on the monument, such as cutting, grinding, and dissolving small particles to provide a complete geochemical analysis. This knowledge was coupled with a technology called portable X-ray fluorescent spectrometry, which involves blasting a surface with X-rays to decode it. This was but a warm-up exercise as true sleuths set out to sample sarsens in southern Britain, from Wiltshire to Dorset, Devon to Oxfordshire. Scores of sites were compared, measured, scanned, and catalogued before, and finally, a match for this fingerprint was found. The 20-ton monoliths of Stonehenge were quarried from West Woods, a high ridge of open country on the fringe of what would become Marlborough. This is now a peaceful wood, filled with bluebells, mountain bikes, and dog owners. But 5,000 years ago, it was a rocky plain dotted with enormous boulders, waiting for a civilization with ambitions to match. 50 of the 52 sarsens can be traced back to this point. This is as close to a smoking gun as you can possibly get in archaeology. They did not select the nearest stones. They went for the best, largest, straightest, and most consistent ones. But this is only part of the story of West Woods. There is one stone that does not play by the same rules. This stone is called the altar stone. Unlike sarsens, this stone's chemistry suggests that it came from much further to the north, probably from Scotland, around 470 miles away. Visualize hauling a heavy stone over rivers, mountains, and moors without wheels. This was accomplished. The question arises, how was it done? An educated guess can be offered, but history has some answers. In many corners of the globe, native tribes have managed to move massive rocks with the help of ingenious, yet quite simple, tools like heavy ropes, logs on sledges, wood rollers, greaseways, and river or coastal transport. All these were available in Neolithic Britain. The journey of the altar stone, for example, may have been long, slow, and extremely challenging, but it was a journey that was also absolutely possible. When people discuss a topic like Stonehenge, it becomes tempting to talk of the engineering involved in it, of the ropes, of the levers, of the sledges that were being hauled by chanting groups of people with rawhide sandals. Transporting these rocks was a ritual. This was a lot more than hauling stone from point A to point B. This effort brought people together, from farmers to builders to clans to regions. Doing this work also created a sense of identity. The common experience of pulling on the same ropes truly brought a nation together. This explains the significance of long-distance stone choice. The average Neolithic monument would be constructed using available rocks in the area. This was not the case for Stonehenge. Its constructors chose, transported, and integrated rocks from sources with significance, either political, religious, or ancestral. Moving giants across Britain was not a chore, but an expression of commitment. Perhaps that is why. But if these stones were chosen with such devotion, what deeper purpose were they hiding in plain sight all along? The solar code of Stonehenge as a perpetual calendar. Stonehenge has mystified visitors for millennia. Recent scholarship indicates that it was the world's earliest stone-built calendar, a colossal time-measuring contrivance crafted by Neolithic individuals. The archaeologist Timothy Darville suggests that Stonehenge ultimately encodes a 365 1/4 day solar year. The numbers of the monument's stones are not accidental. They correspond to days, weeks, and months. The 30 sarsen uprights make a continuous loop of 30 days, a perfect Neolithic month. Two unique stones further subdivide each month into 3 weeks of 10 days each. 5 trilithon horseshoe stones mark the epagomenal days, bonus days for rituals or reinforcing elite authority over the calendar. Every 4 years, the station stones account for adding a leap day in order to align the stone calendar with the true solar year. Stonehenge is undeniably aligned with the solstices. The heel stone catches the midsummer sunrise, while the tallest trilithon frames the winter sun. These alignments demanded advanced planning and astronomical knowledge, remarkable for a society without writing or metal tools. Controlling time equated to controlling society. The ones who understood the calendar had actual control over agriculture and seasonal ceremonies. Not everyone is convinced. Skeptics have variously argued that the calendar theory relies on numerical coincidence, while others see Stonehenge as primarily ritualistic. Lunar connections exist too. 2 station stones line up with the 18.6-year lunar standstill, and early burials occur in the southeast, the direction of the moon's southernmost rise. Evidence from Durrington walls reveals massive midwinter feasts, where people gathered across Britain during the darkest days to celebrate the sun's return. It was not an isolated phenomenon, as monuments across Britain and Ireland share these winter solstice alignments, hinting at far-reaching beliefs about the sun's sacred rebirth. But what if the monument's true power wasn't only in observing the sky? Could Stonehenge itself speak to the living? The sound chamber. Stonehenge's hidden acoustics. But Stonehenge was not just built to frame the sky, it was engineered to shape sound. Modern research now reveals that this ancient monument created acoustic magic, amplifying voices within the stone circle while silencing them for those outside. To test the hypothesis, acoustic engineers at the University of Salford built Mini-Henge, a perfect 1:12 scale model. They were able to reconstruct the monument as it stood circa 2500 BCE using laser scans and 3D printing, complete with 157 stones, including those long vanished. The result was astonishing. Within the circle, sound was amplified by more than 4 decibels, a difference noticeable even today. Voices clarified and became more resonant, with no hint of distortion. Step outside, and everything changed. Conversations became muffled ghosts that hardly breached the stone boundary. Stonehenge acts like a sound bubble, transparent from within, opaque from without. The arrangement traps sound horizontally, bouncing it back into the circle again and again. It wasn't an accident, but a deliberate acoustic design. Results indicate that rituals at Stonehenge were differentially experienced depending on positioning. Inside, the soundscape was immersive and sacred, whereas outside, it was far and unreachable, a private auditory world for those who were allowed inside. Even the stones themselves create a soundscape. On windy days, they hum faintly. Some ringing stones ring like gongs when struck. In 2013, researchers played them like an ancient xylophone, creating eerie metallic tones. Stonehenge was a highly controlled sensory environment in which sound, light, and architecture collaborated. Voices were heard as amplified, and music sounded magnified from within the circle, while the same rituals outside it seemed remote and mysterious. This design created a division, not of walls, but of experience. A select few inside participated fully. The many outside could only watch, seeing gestures, but never hearing the words behind them. Stonehenge was an ancient inner sanctum of sound. But what if the very stones meant to preserve sound also held secrets, dangerous ones? Could Stonehenge itself be hiding messages? The silent wounds, centuries of vandalism, and modern threats. Stonehenge has seen innumerable enemies throughout many ages, but none as persistent as people themselves. Centuries before the monument was given protected status, visitors chipped bits off to carry away and use for building houses, roads, and whatnot. By the 17th century, the ruin was being taken apart piece by piece. The 19th century brought souvenir hunters armed with chisels, pocketing fragments they never realized were erasing history. The 20th century brought no relief. The annual Free Festival on Salisbury Plain attracted crowds that were at first apparently harmless, but by 1978 it was necessary to fence off the whole area. Vandalism worsened during the 80s and 90s, coming to a head in 1984 when purple paint daubed on the stones forced the establishment of exclusion zones, police patrols, and even temporary closure. In 2008, 2 men managed to break off a coin-sized piece of the heel stone, the first recorded attack for decades. In 2020, plans for a controversial tunnel nearby were fiercely opposed, with historian Tom Holland describing the proposal as incredible destruction. Even the stones have been targeted by climate activists. On 19th June 2024, Just Stop Oil spread orange cornflower paint across 3 monoliths. Fortunately, the powder washed away without permanent damage, but the stunt underlined how vulnerable the monument still is. Today, Stonehenge is a partially ruined circle, but it had once been a complete ring of towering sarcens crowned with lintels. While erosion and weathering caused some of the stones to fall, others were intentionally taken away from the site. The archaeologists depend on early photographs, drawings, and reconstructions to recreate a picture of what Stonehenge would have looked like when it was first built. The missing stones from the circle suggest that perhaps the site was abandoned prior to completion due to a societal breakdown, a change in appropriate beliefs, or some other unknown circumstance. There appears to have been a decline in activity at Stonehenge during the Bronze Age, which is prolonged even to this day due to its current appearance as partially completed and partially finished. Stonehenge also served as an observatory focused on humanity's connection to the universe, as well as a tomb for those who passed away. Archaeological excavations have turned up a significant number of cremated remains from around the same time as Stonehenge's construction, far more than have been found in any other Neolithic burial ground within Britain. Many of the cremated remains are located close to certain stones of special significance, which suggests that the practice of burial may have coincided with viewing the celestial arrangements that occurred on and very near the winter solstice, when the sun sets. The importance of these celestial alignments is associated with death and the concept of rebirth in different cultures over many thousands of years. The monument likely functioned as a sacred landscape wherein the living and the dead converged in ritualized ceremonies. By the early 20th century, the stones were in danger of collapse. Leaning monoliths were propped up with wooden props, and parts of the circle balanced precariously. The Antrobus family, who had owned the site since the 19th century, put it up for auction in 1915. It was purchased for £6,600 by Cecil and Mary Chubb and gifted to the nation on 26 October 1918. According to Kate Maver, chief executive at English Heritage, the Chubbs' generosity saved Stonehenge from ruin, protecting this national treasure. Cecil Chubb was later knighted, so the couple became known as Sir Cecil and Lady Chubb. Because of their gift, government conservators were able to reset the fallen stones, straighten twisted monoliths, and stabilize the landscape so visitors could visit Stonehenge safely. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in our next upload.